You said that you were doing it. We talked about it yesterday.
Hi, welcome back to the Element Collection podcast. Today, we are so excited to introduce you to our friend, Deiver Montes of Avalon Sports. Welcome to the podcast, Deiver.
Thank you guys for having me. It's been amazing talking to you guys from distance now being here and just grateful to be here. So thank you guys for having me on.
We're grateful to have you. And you just said from all this time, it's so cool how the circles connect and then they kind of just, the world gets smaller and smaller with every connection. And we love that.
I know. It's crazy. Obviously I gotta thank Irvin, which is the man behind the camera, for
Thanks, Irvin.
me here on today. And amazing. I love what you guys are doing, and I think it's gonna be a great conversation today.
Wonderful. Well, let's kick it off. Let's get started. Tell everyone who you are and I guess kind of how you got started and what you're up to.
Yeah. Well, I was born and raised in Colombia. Um, so I was my parents, my dad was in the army for a long time. My mom was always still in the medical sector. Um, I fell in love with the game of soccer when I was 5. Really because I just didn't have a lot to do, and just I think my mom was just tired of me doing nothing at home, and she's like, "Yo, go do something." So I fell in love with soccer when I was 5. And really just started playing for fun. I never thought I'll pursue a professional career in soccer. Um, but my dad was deployed for a long time, so I was just with my mom at home. And as I got older, I was 9 and 10. I figured that that's something that I would want to do for the rest of my life. Um, and so my dad, when he came back, he took me on tryouts, and when I was 14, I signed my first professional contract. So I had to move from Colombia to Argentina. For those who don't know, Argentina is about 8 hours. It's about 8, 9 hour plane ride from Colombia. It's pretty far. Um, it's really south of South America, and so I moved to Argentina being 14 years old, by myself. So
14 years old?
yes,
That's
so
when like professional starts there?
yeah, so Argentina is a little bit different, and it's actually different than here in the U.S., right? So because you don't to become a pro soccer player outside of America, you don't really have to go to college, or you don't have to go the traditional route, but it's more so, hey, you're talented, we want you, whether you're 14 or 25. Um, so I had to make that move. I don't think I was ready, to be honest, because I mean, at 14, if I have a kid and he's like, "Yo, I want to go play professional soccer at 14," I'm like, "No, you're not." But I think things play in my favor that my parents trusted my vision at the time, and I moved to Argentina. Different country culture, different style of soccer too, was very aggressive. I was very little, very small, and that's when I left my home. I'm 31 now, so I've been away from like 15 years now. But that's really where everything started for me.
Where does a 14-year-old live?
Thank you. I'm like, I have so many questions.
Yeah, so the structure was really interesting, right? So I was there on a trial for about 2 weeks with my dad, and at the mark of the 2 weeks, they offered me a contract. But obviously, I had an issue. It was like I'm a minor, and my dad had to go back to Colombia. So my dad's like, "You can't stay. You have to go back with me." I'm like, "No, Dad, I want to stay." So the club River Plate, which is one of the biggest clubs in the world, to me, the biggest one. Um, they're like, well, if you want your kid to stay, you have to give us custody of your son so that he can stay legally in the country. My mom obviously freaked out. She's like, "There's no way, it's not happening." But after talking a few times, I'm like, "Mom, I want to do this." So she's like, "Okay, well, let's give it a try." So they gave custody to the club. So within the structure, there was a building that had all kids from all ages, but they were all Argentinians. I was the only foreigner at the time. So I pretty much moved there, and I started living with a bunch of random kids. Um, and really the club was, the one who raised me and gave me everything. So, you can imagine it was really tough because it's not 2025. Like at that time, it was like what, 2007, I believe so. And I had no internet, I had no phone. It was the time where you had to actually buy the phone card and call your mom. It was really tough, but that's how everything started.
That is really tough. You are obviously a hustler, a mover, a shaker. It really takes a lot to, for people to even leave their houses to go to college. So doing that at a young age, like, wow, what a moment. Um, how long did you stay in Argentina? Did you play with any other teams?
Yes, I was there from 14 till I was 19. Yeah. And then after I was transferred over to Germany.
Wow.
So, and mind you, I didn't speak any English or German, so the only language I spoke was Spanish, which made me struggle real hard when I made it to Germany, for obvious reasons. Um, and you guys been to Europe many times, and obviously the culture over there is way different than South America. Um, so it was tough. It was tough. Yeah.
So in that transition, so okay, you went to Germany. What happened next? Like, how did we get to Avalon?
Yeah, so I went to Germany. Like I said, I struggled a lot because the culture was super different. When I got there, the coach told me, he's like, well, you have to speak German if you want to play. Um, Quickly he figured out that German is really tough. At least for me, it was really tough. So he's like, well, if you learn English, then you might be able to get some playing time. So that's actually where I learned. And this was 6 years ago, 7 years ago. So I learned English. Finally, I'm getting my playing time. I'm doing good. And 6 months into my contract, I tore my ACL, and it was really tough because I was at it was my prime as I thought so, and you guys were with athletes, that injuries are something that you can't really control. And what happened was they're like, well, you can stay here and rehab here, or you can go to the U.S. because they have a partnership with a medical facility in New York, so you can go there and rehab there. I had never been to the U.S. in my life, and I didn't even think about being here ever, even for a vacation. So I'm like, yeah, I want to go to New York. I want to see what's up. So I was here for 13 months doing my rehab, and actually, I did my rehab with a lot of football players, which to me at the time, American football was not a thing. Bigger guys, super muscular. I was like, yo, who are these guys? And they're like, yo, you're too small. You can't even play football. So I started building bonds with football players, understanding the game. But more than that, I understood that there was an opportunity here in sports and entertainment because the way we market and do things here in the US, we didn't do that elsewhere. So I'm like, at that time, I was going through a rough patch in my life. And I'm like, okay, I have to start thinking about after soccer, what am I going to do? So that's really where the idea of Avalon Sports was born out of my need of finding a new way to kind of reinvent myself, but also because I saw the opportunity in American sports in general.
So you saw the opportunity during your downtime
Yes.
of rehabilitation from the injury.
Yes.
That is just literally the crux of even why we started having these type of conversations on like that moment of influence and turning it into legacy. So you saw this opportunity, you saw the need. What do you believe contributed to the get up and go outside of course the injury, needing to make a living for yourself after, like I understand that, but your upbringing is so multifaceted when it comes to leaving home at 14 and then going to another country and then having part of like your custodial rights taken away from your parents. Like, what do you think contributed to that hustle or that grit?
That's a great question. I mean, I'm like you said, I'm a hustler. I'm Colombian, and I feel like a little bit of the Latino culture too helped because I, I'll be honest, like at the time I did not understand anything about football, like American football, right? So, it was weird that when I made the move and I retire, um, actually I gotta say the first client that we have is someone that you guys had on the podcast, which is Jordan Poyer. He was the
So
first.
cool.
It's all full circle, right? He was the first player that we signed, like
Like ever.
ever. It was him because you backtrack a little bit. I moved to Buffalo, New York, and so I already knew a lot of football players, but the I didn't trust myself enough to go out and say, hey, I want to start working with you. But Jordan, I mean, I'm sure he shared his story here. He was going through something at the time with alcohol, and when I met him, I think it had been 6 months after he came out and did an Instagram post on March 13, 2020, I think it was, when he said, "Yo, I've been alcoholic, whatever." So I talked to him, and he's like, "Hey, I want to turn myself, or I want to become an advocate for alcoholism and just tell people it's okay to ask for help." And I'm like, I was surprised with him. I said, "I just retired. I have this idea. I think we can do something." And he's like, "Okay, I trust you. You know what? Let's do it." So he was actually my first paid client.
Give me chills. It gives me all of those. I don't. Jordan, take the wheel. I don't have it.
I think for us, like, it's just crazy how this world works, right? Like, I truly believe the people that you're meant to know are going to come into your life because we were originally introduced through Greg Sullivan.
Yes.
So
Shout out to Greg. We love you, Greg.
we do love you, Greg. But and even in the moment, like, we were still figuring out who the Elevate Collection were, like who we were as a company when we met with you. And I remember too, before we took the call, we were like, okay, what angle are we going to take on this call? And it was before the podcast was even developed. So then sometimes it's not, and we talk about this a lot on the podcast. It's not no, it's a not right now.
Right.
So to like
Yes.
now have you with us and and to work with Irvin and Jordan, like clearly we were meant to be on each other's paths, doing these things.
Crazy.
Y'all are just like, I am really having like a moment of like, this is insane to be sitting here when you put all of those dominoes and you stack all the dominoes, you put like, you get the, we're dealt a hand, and to see that the cards are lining up the way they're lined that have us sitting on this couch right now is mind boggling to me. And that you having your challenge of like, all right, what do I do now? Met with Jordan's like, all right, I've got to turn this around. That you've now created this empire, this movement, this lifestyle that is Avalon. Can you tell me a little bit about the name Avalon? Like, why Avalon?
Yeah, that's a great story. I'll be super honest. So I was watching a movie. It's called Passengers. It's with Chris Pratt. I don't know if you've seen it. It's like a spaceship that goes and they freeze your body and you're supposed to wake up and you make it to the other planet, whatever. I was literally watching that movie and I was in the process of finding a name that was catchy. That was because I always dream of having like a name that you can combine with like different divisions as we have now. So you have Avalon Sports, you have Avalon Studios, which is a production company. You have Avalon Entertainment. So I was like, I need something short. So I was watching this movie, and the spaceship that they're in, it's called Avalon. And I was talking with, I was like, Avalon. I was like, that's a cool name. And I was looking up companies. There was nothing like it. And I'm like, all right, well, I'll just if someone asks, I want to come out with a cool story when they ask why. But Avalon works for me. So that's literally how and why Avalon.
I respect that. You don't even know. My daughter was actually named from, my daughter's name is Leighton, and we got a magazine in the mail, and Leighton Meester was on the cover of it. And that is how my daughter got her first name. So
Yeah,
I support the movie theory.
Yes,
Like, I'm here
yes,
for it.
yes. No, that's how it happened. Honestly, it was amazing, and I think it was a really good choice.
Okay, sorry. I just have so many questions today. Of your upbringing, your challenges, like your hustle, your grit that got you to where you're at today, how do you think that sets your approach to business when it comes to representing your clients?
Yeah. The first thing is that you know I was fortunate enough to be able to play at a pro level. Um, so I understand the struggles that we have as pro athletes, right? And I understand that it's all about. It's hard because anyone that's trying to enter into the industry that they know they have to make a connection with the players themselves. We're all different, but to me it was how do I? It was challenging because I never played football. And I started in my business was founded really on with an NFL player. So it's like, how do I make this guy understand that I do get what he's going through when I don't even get the game, right? Because with Jordan, he makes jokes about me not understanding plays, and he will talk to me about football. And I'm like, yes, but I don't really get it, right? Um, but I think being family oriented, right? I grew up with my parents was blessed that they were always there with me, so I understood that I needed to become like more than friends with the guys and just being honest. And I always knew that I didn't want to become what I call a yes guy. Yo, David, what are you thinking about? Yes, 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 yes. Because I don't want to say all of them, but a lot of them want to hear yes all the time. And then when things go wrong, then they go back and look at you. So I'm like, I'm gonna tell you how it is. If I don't think it's a good idea, I'll tell you no. And when we talk about Jordan, I've had arguments with Jordan, like because we have different opinions, right? But we all get that. I get where he's coming from, and he gets that I'm just trying to be honest. I'm not trying to have people agree with me, but you have to be real with them.
Yeah.
Even if that means that you might lose a client, or but like it's about you. So transparency, and I think just being honest with yourself and showing them why you think it's the truth. I think it helps you build that bond with the players.
I think leading through authenticity and like
Yeah.
building really great relationships is truly how we do move forward in this business. Because, and we've talked about this too, there's a person behind the player,
Yes.
and they have very complex needs. And you're working in American football and soccer in multiple countries. Are you doing all sports? Are we sticking to those two?
Yeah.
Kind of give us a rundown.
Yeah. So we well, Avalon's at heart is a sports marketing agency. But here's what happened. I was hyper focusing NFL, and then I went back into soccer obviously because of my background. So what I did was I replicated the business model that I created in America over in Europe. So I went to Europe after might have been 2 years into the business. I moved to Europe for a few months, and I replicated what I did here. So we represent pro athletes in soccer, but we also work with professional clubs, as we do with the franchises, right? So we work with Dolphins, Falcons, Steelers, Bills, whatever, on the marketing side. Doing the same in soccer with for those who like soccer, Real Madrid, Manchester United, PSG, some of the biggest clubs in the world we work with. So I had sports fairly covered, right? And then what happened was that entertainers, influencers, artists wanted to get into sports. So I'm like, well, looking at the audience and looking at people who follow sports and music might be the same audience. I'm like, well, we have a business here. So what we did was, the first influencer, if you will, that we started working with was Jake Paul, when he founded his sports gambling company, Better, their headquarters in Miami. I met with Jake, and Jake, as big as he is, he really, wasn't connected with sports per se. Mm-hmm. So I started working with Jake. We started doing activations with the NFL, the Miami Dolphins, and it was like a domino effect. Obviously, you have someone like Jake, then you have a lot of people that want to come afterwards. So that led me into creating Avalon Entertainment, which we do exactly the same thing that we do in sports, but we work with entertainers. So Will Smith, Logan Paul, Jake Paul. Now we got into music. So we work with some of the biggest Latino artists, Mike Towers, Bob Bunny, on marketing campaigns. So what we did was we created a 360 ecosystem where we have sports, we have entertainment, and then we also work on the corporate side with brands, right? So it's a little complex, but essentially what we do is we're a one-stop shop for anything that has to do with activations, either in sports or entertainment. And like you said, we're currently in Spain, Colombia, US, and we're about to open office in Saudi Arabia in the next 5 weeks.
Congratulations.
So appreciate it.
Wait, when was Avalon founded? How quickly have you been able to scale this?
4 years.
4 years.
Yeah. So this was born in 2020.
Yeah.
During COVID. And I signed Jordan at the end of 2020. Coming into 2021, that was when he signed a contract with us. So it's been a little over 4 years. 4 years, yeah.
As it relates to like the values of Avalon, and as you've been able to acquire these new clients, of course, we know the domino effect of it all. What do you believe that value or that consistent baseline of like character? Because you said that something powerful that I thought you said, I just don't want to, I want to be more than just like your friend, these guys. I don't want to be just these guys' friend, right? You don't want to be the yes man. What do you believe is that value or that character trait that is like the backbone of Avalon as you guys go through new like client acquisition?
It's a really good question. We have turned down players at Avalon because we don't believe that we're not saying we're better, but we just believe that we're not aligned in terms of the vision, which is very tough when you're trying to. I mean, I'm not trying to come here and say that I reinvented the wheel or did something extraordinary, because we didn't. But what I knew from the start is that of course we had to make money, we had to be a viable business, but at the same time, if the foundation, if the players, if the people that were coming on board at the beginning weren't aligned with our vision, this was gonna go south real quick, right? So from the beginning, they knew that we were what I call a boutique agency. When you guys work with players a lot, and they always complain about agencies just thinking about them as numbers and very transactional. So, you know, we always wanted to build that relationship first, right? Whether we and we I don't want to say we lost money, because I feel like you learn, but we invested a lot of I invested a lot of my own capital into building relationship with players. And I did things I'm sure you guys have done too, where I'm like, yeah, I'm paying for this. I'm not charging you for that. I'm paying for XYZ, just because I thought that that would be a way of me earning their trust. And then I figured out, like, no, that's not the way. So I made a lot of mistakes, but they always knew from the beginning that I was the guy that was super honest, super raw, and that they would hear from me as it was. And I think the backbone of that was just, like you said, authenticity and trust. Like, they knew that they were coming to me, and I will tell them straight up, I think we can do it. I don't think we can do it. I think it's good. I don't think it's good. So, because of that reason, a lot of players still didn't want to work with us, which is fine. We're not meant to work with everybody. But I think when people think of Avalon, or when you ask Jordan or Grady, which is in your hometown, or any of the players that we represent, I think they all might say the same thing, or share the same sentiment about how we do things here.
I want to talk about all of the different markets that you're working in, because, okay, we're doing Colombia, the United States, Europe, and soon Saudi Arabia. Like, what are the differences? Are consumers consuming things the same way in all the different areas? Are you having to tailor the approach? Obviously, there's some restrictions in some of the
Yeah.
markets you're working in, like
Cultural.
Like, kind of walk us through that.
Yeah, I think each market is definitely very different. I'll say when it comes to sports marketing, I think here in America we're 10, 50 years ahead of everybody, which I think actually has played to our advantage, which is, I think anything that we bring over, like I was telling you guys off the record, I feel like everything that we've done here in America, you bring it over to Europe or to Saudi, and people are like, wow, like you can actually do that. I'm like, yes. I mean,
Why not?
that's we've done it already. So, when you look at, very very quick, when you look at Europe, a lot of culture, right? It's a great place to work in, great region, but they don't really care about talking about sports. They don't really care about what happens, off the pitch, right? They want to see, if your team wins, that's all they want to, see. They don't. There's places in England, for example, that you go watch a game, they don't even drink water. They just sit down, watch the game, and they want to be done with. There's no halftime stuff. There's no pre-game or post-game. There's nothing. So going into Europe was tough, because I came with these crazy ideas and activations, like, no, you have to respect the badge, you have to respect culture here, you're not gonna go and change everything, so you have to be mindful of the region you're want to do business in, but there's certain things that they let you do. And I think in England, for example, we started with with the NFL playing in Wembley, and
Right.
the London games. And what we did was very simple. We just brought Premier League teams over to the game, and we brought players, and we gave them jerseys, and we put them on the field, and they're like, "Yo, this is the craziest thing ever." And I'm like, "That happens every weekend in the U.S." So, you know, but what happened was that we earned their trust and we earned their business. And so, our team, we have people all over the world, but obviously we're headquartered, I would say, between Miami and Colombia, and we were able to scale up without investing a lot, because a lot of stuff we do it from our headquarters. So literally a lot of stuff that before we had an office in Europe, we did everything from Miami. Now we had enough business where we're like, okay, we need to have an office now, so we did it. But when it sounds like, oh, well, you guys are everywhere. We are, but we were real smart how we scaled up, right? And we were very cautious with how we spend our money and how we got into those markets, because obviously it's expensive to operate there. But now that we kind of find a way of like being there without having too many people involved, and obviously as operation scale, you can invest a little bit more. Um, but I think what you said is key. I think you have to be cognizant of the region you're in and the cultural differences, because as fast as you can grow, you can also fall if you make a mistake, especially places like Saudi Arabia that we're talking about.
Yeah.
There's no room for mistakes. So you really have to understand the region you're coming in, and really what your offering is gonna look like.
Do you have a favorite market?
Ooh, you asked me that. Um, poof, I'll say they're all special. Probably my heart is here because I'm Colombian, right?
Yeah.
I love my country, but I know for a fact that we wouldn't have the company that we do now if it wasn't for the US. If it wasn't for the people here that trusted us, that gave us an opportunity. So if I started a company in Europe or elsewhere, I wouldn't have the backing of everything that we've done here to actually go overseas. So to me, this is home. Like this is the place where the company. I mean, we are an American company, right? Although I'm Colombian, but I feel like we're an American company, and so I think in the U.S., if I had to choose one, I think it would be here.
Is there a moment that was kind of like your mama I made it moment? Your moment that's like, wow, I'm doing this. Like we are doing this. This is like a real business and like I'm winning and this is gonna be a thing.
Yeah, I have lots of them. If I had to pick one, um, I think actually going back to the Jordan moment, I think when he signed the contract, we did a video, um, and I think I don't think at the time you could do collab posts, but he put it on his story. And the video obviously had the watermark of Avalon, and I'm like, yo, this is like an NFL player is like putting our stuff on their page, right? Which right now you're like whatever, but like to me at that moment, like I sent it over to my family and like people from the Bills. I mean, you guys know Bills Mafia, so it was like, Jordan. You can look it up. Jordan Poyer signs with Avalon Sports, and I was like, I just signed an NFL player. I have no idea what the game looks like. I don't get it. What's for a quarter? Like, I don't like it. But I have an NFL player signed to us, and so I was in Buffalo. So everything's like, yo, you the Jordan Poyer guy. So for a long time, I was in the Avalon guy. I was the Jordan Poyer guy. I was like, oh, you Jordan's guy. You Jordan's guy. So that was like the moment where I'm like, I think we have a business here.
Well, with that being said, being in community with the American people, our community, elevate the community, our listeners, our audience, followers, wherever they may be. A question that we always ask is how can our community, our listeners, everyone that we're in contact with, our network, how can they help move your needle forward? And that can be personally, that could be professionally in your business, whatever it may be. But if there's an area in your life that a needle needs to be moved, how can people show up for you?
That's amazing. Well, I appreciate the question first. I think it's amazing. I think it's really just really following our journey. I mean, there's a ton of sports markets out there. They're all great, right? Competition is really what makes you better. Um, but I think in our case is we are really trying to do something special, not only for the players or the clubs or for the country. I mean, we have the club World Cup that's here in the U.S. in 6 months, and then we have the national team World Cup next year. We're trying to do things here where not only we do great things for athletes, but also for people that want to break into the industry, right? Um, I'm blessed enough. I get a lot of DMs from people either wanting to work with us or just wanting advice in general in sports. That to me is the best thing ever, because that means that you're doing something right, and it's gonna sound cliche or whatever, but it's true. Like if you inspire one person, right? One person watches this podcast and it's like, wow, like I wanna work in sports. You did what you needed to do, right?
Yes.
Um, money comes and goes, right? We all need, obviously, money. We wanna be successful, whatever. But at the end of the day, like I think Like, to me, honestly, the biggest space when I go somewhere and they're like, "Oh, yeah, Avalon, yeah, I've heard of you guys. You've done X, Y, Z." I'm like, "Yeah, we did." So that makes me super proud. So, just continue to engage with us, and also, I mean, we're here to help, right? So anyone with questions or anyone wanting to know more about what we do, or just curious about anything. I mean, that's what we're here for. So just like you guys, we're trying to build a community, and just want to be of help to anybody that wants and needs it.
Thank you so much. I just want to end this podcast, if I may, with a moment of just gratitude because as we've gone through this journey of this podcast, every one of our guests, anyone that we've been aligned with, connected to, has demonstrated such a beautiful alignment with us and our values that we live by at Elevate. And that is we elevate by elevating the lives of other people. And their responses when we're asking this question is always about other people. It's always about, well, if someone needs this, or if someone needs this, or go tell someone you love them, go give somebody a hug, go, you know, none of the answers have been truly self serving. And that is something I am so grateful for. And not that, and granted, it's okay to ask for what you want. I'm not saying that, but it has been such a beautiful demonstration of alignment, I think, as we go through this first season of the Elevate Collection podcast. And I'm so grateful.
I'm so grateful for you sharing your story with us and for being an incredible human and changing the game and inspiring those all around you and just continuing to bring incredible people together. So thank you so much for joining us today, Dave.
Awesome. No, thank you guys. It's amazing. I want to give a shout out to Irv. I mean, I could go on for hours. He's obviously not only the reason why I'm here, but he's um, you know, he, he's played a huge role into building what Avalon looks like today. I mean, I think we probably can do a podcast of him and I. Just we literally sat down one day in Oregon one day. So like, yo, want to do this? I'm like, yeah, I want to do this. So, um, shout out to him, a hustler. You guys are super lucky to you know um have me here, and yeah, just grateful for him and anyone that's played a little part in our journey. So
Thanks so much, Urban.
Thank you, Urban.